Hello, my name is Mike. Welcome to my personal channel where I talk to you about whatever I want. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how much it costs me to own my own airplane. Owning an airplane as a civilian is a real thing in the United States. And for me personally, I understand that it's an incredible privilege that I'm very grateful for. So take this video not me boasting on what I own, but rather to share some knowledge as I've been doing on this channel. Now, if you know me from my aviation channel, Mojo Grip, you know me as a private pilot and that I recently bought a 2020 four-seater airplane. It's a Sling TSi. So in today's video, I'm gonna break down the costs. First, the purchase price and also the ownership costs to own that airplane. Stay tuned. To help me with the breakdown, I have an Excel sheet here on my phone. Also, I'm gonna post it on the screen so you can follow on the numbers that I'm putting out. Now, when you're buying an airplane, as I did, again, you're gonna think of your purchase price, and frankly, depending on what your budget is and what your mission for that airplane is going to be, you have different options. You have, especially when it comes to single engine airplanes, you can get a two-seater, you can get a four-seater, you can buy used, you can buy brand new, you can buy one pre-built, or you can build one yourself. Now, my airplane is a Sling TSi, which is considered an experimental airplane. Experimental meaning that you buy a kit and then you build the airplane completely. Now, I'm gonna break down the costs for doing that and going through that path. Now, once you buy your airplane, just like when you buy a car, you also have your ownership costs, insurance, you have fixed costs, you have variable costs, fuel, maintenance, and so on and so forth. And unlike a car, owning an airplane can really get up there, especially say you buy a used airplane that may need a lot of work. Well, in my case, what I did while the airplane was being built is I constantly made sure that I did the math because I was anticipating how much I would need to spend every month or every year to own this airplane. And so I've got my calculation here. So one of the biggest costs that you're going to have when you're building your airplane is fuel. You need to gas up the plane. And right now for my airplane, the common fuel that we use is called avgas, 100 low lead. And that fuel is available in just about every airport that you go to. But one caveat with my plane is that I can also use car gas if I can find it. But most airports, unfortunately, don't have car gas. And if I did, I would probably spend a lot less on my gas. But right now, I have a budget of about $5 per gallon. Now, in order for me to calculate how much fuel I'm actually going to need, I need also to budget how much flying I'm going to be doing. So the next number is how many hours am I going to be flying? Believe it or not, the average owner of an airplane in the United States, they fly their plane around 50 hours a year, which is not much. But for me, because of the work that I do with consulting, with creating YouTube content, and also real estate, I imagine that I will be flying this airplane a lot more. So I estimated 200 hours a year. And with that, now I can calculate how much fuel I'm going to need. My airplane sips roughly 8 gallons of fuel per hour. So when I calculate my fuel costs, I basically do the division of how many hours and then how many gallons of fuel that I burn per hour. So once I do the math, I estimate that my fuel cost is going to be around, let's say a little bit less than $10,000. I'm using an Excel sheet here, which I'll also put in the link in the description below for anyone who wants to do their own calculations. So I've got fuel costs that will cost me roughly $5 a gallon. I've got my tie down or hangar. Now, when you buy an airplane, you need to keep it at the airport, like have a garage for it. You can have a tie down, which is cheaper, or you can have a hangar, which is a little bit more expensive. Now, my hangar cost is roughly $330 per month. That's a fixed cost, whether I fly the airplane or not. Now, the next cost is annual. Annual is more like, it's not an oil change, but it's actually required to have an annual done on your airplane every single year, either every year or every 100 hours. So an annual, I imagine for this airplane will be roughly $1,200. Now, if I was flying a used airplane, that budget will go a little bit up, but I imagine that, or I expect it to be around $1,200. So that's my budget for annual. Now, another fixed cost that I have with this plane is my insurance. And unfortunately, insurance for private aviation is just skyrocketed in the last year. Right now, I have gotten several quotes, but I imagine roughly I'm going to be spending $6,500 or around $6,000 a year for my insurance premium. Now, the next cost is your hourly reserve. I can put 0 here. Hourly reserve, you use that just for anything that could come up. So it's basically every hour that you fly the airplane, you put some money away. In this case, I put around $15. So around $3,000. I would just put away $3,000 away every year. And that $3,000 will come in handy if I was doing any maintenance work or even my annual. That's what the reserve is for. Now, another fixed cost that you generally have with airplane ownership is your overhaul. Overhaul means that after a certain amount of time that you've flown the engine of that airplane, it needs to be overhauled, meaning you got to get a brand new engine. Now, this is not the case for cars, but in private aviation, that's the case. It's part of safety. It's the rule. So you put away some money every hour that you fly also for overhaul costs. And the average cost to overhaul an engine, particularly the engine that I'm flying behind, is around $25,000. It can go up to 30, it can go up to 35, but I imagine it will be 25,000. Now, for me, I'm actually skipping the step. The reason being that this plane is brand new. The engine is also brand new. And I imagine even if I fly this airplane for 5 to 10 years, I would still be able to either get out of it, or maybe if I upgrade to something bigger, faster, I'll still be able to upgrade out of it without having to overhaul the engine. So let's assume 5 years, which is sort of my plan for this airplane. If I own this airplane for 5 years and I put roughly 200 hours a year on the engine, that's only about 1,000 hours. If I decided to sell this airplane or trade it for a different airplane in 5 years, the engine would still have 1,000 hours left. Now, actually, the Rotax 915, the current overhaul is 1,200 hours. But chances are within the next 5 years, that number will go up to 2,000, which is about the average. So I imagine that in 5 years, I'm still able to either continue flying the airplane or trade it for something else, and the engine would still be running great without an overhaul. So I'm gonna skip this step and save my $25,000. So altogether, this is roughly what it will cost me to own and fly my own private plane. It came up to about $23,000 roughly. So in understanding this number, I actually estimate that I will be spending $24,000 a year, which is roughly $2,000 every month for me to be able to own and fly this airplane. $24,000 a year, again, that's a luxury to have, but it also depends on what you plan on using the airplane for. In my case, in making this investment, I imagine that in 3 to 5 years, this airplane would have more than paid for itself. I'm actually using it for business purposes. I've got my real estate investment, the consultant gigs that I do, and also I have a dealership. I also use it for YouTube. So in essence, all of the revenue that will come from all of these all of these businesses, it's gonna pay for the airplane eventually. That's why I was comfortable to make that investment. So for anyone out there who perhaps is wondering what it would be like to own your own airplane or how much it will cost, I actually encourage you to not just buy the airplane for enjoyment. If you have a business or some type of paying gig that you can attach the use of that airplane to, it makes more sense, and it's actually more satisfying knowing that this airplane is being paid for by other things that you're doing. Okay, so I hope you learned that today, and if you have any questions, leave in the comments below. Thank you all so much for spending time with me. Again, my name is Mike. If you have not subscribed to the channel, make sure you do right now and hit the notification bell. Also, please give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Keep watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.